On the show this week,
The Panto survivors keeping the show on the road.
Hello, me darlings!
The Native American woman making waves in the Grand Canyon. The Roman Empire's sunken party town. And how to run up a sand dune.
It's tough. I just keep thinking, relentless forward motion, just one step after the other.
hi and welcome to the travel show, coming to you from a festive Windsor, not far from London and famous chiefly for the enormous royal residence that you can see behind me. Now, in spite of the glimmers of hope that we're hearing in the news, for many of us travel is still impractical. But never fear, because we're still working hard to give you inspiration amidst all the gloom and doom. For Britain's theatres, Christmas can only mean one thing: Panto. Singing, dancing, comedy, romance and belting catchphrases.
Oh, no, it wasn't!
All based in a traditional fairy tale setting, pantomime has every ingredient needed for a fun family night out. Except in 2020, many of our much-loved pantomimes don't have a stage to perform on. With only a limited number of shows still running across the country this year, Panto, like the majority of the arts, has been dealt a heavy blow by COVID. Data from trade association UK Theatre revealed that ticket income from its members' productions grossed £60 million last year, the highest amount ever. This winter, however, things couldn't be more different. And for many much-loved regional theatres, it's had a devastating impact. Lincoln, for instance, is normally brimming with Christmas magic in December. Not this year, though.
It's hugely devastating. When we took on the theatre in 2016, it was completely on its knees. It was in desperate need of some TLC. Its reputation was dreadful. So we had a real hard slog and a battle to win the hearts and minds of the community, never mind the industry. And throughout our four-year journey, we got several awards. Our pantomime that we just did last year, Robin Hood, was nominated in the top 5 pantomimes in the country for the British Panto Awards as Best Pantomime, which was huge. It was brilliant. So we're really riding hard. We worked so hard to get to that, get to that stage. And then for it to so abruptly stop and be just, cold instantly was just like a... Yeah, I can't even put into words how soul-destroying that was.
Pantomime's origins can be traced back to Italian street theatre in the early 16th century. From there, they spread across Europe, from Italy to France, before becoming popular in the UK. I've got to say, I've always had a real affection for pantomime since I was a child, and then I took my children to the theatre. But you know what? I've got a sneaking sympathy, affection for the bad guy in the pantomime, because the bad guy, everyone boos them and hisses them, but actually they're really important.
Hang on a minute. It's not just the bad guys that are important in pantos, It's also the good guys, and I just happen to be one of those as well.
Why are you important, Basil Brush?
Well, really, when you're in pantomime, it's about good winning over evil. It's a very moral story nowadays, you see. And I think that's very important. You have the bad guys that everybody boos and the good guys that get the cheer. Yay!
Basil, I've got to say, you are a veteran of pantomime. You've been doing it for decades and decades. This year has been tough. what effect has it had on you and your colleagues in Theatreland?
Well, I've got to tell you, it's been one of the most toughest years ever. I mean, I've been a furloughed fox since March. I was meant to be at the Glastonbury Festival, the Edinburgh Festival, you know, and looking at a very full diary, and there it was instantly pulled, just like most other entertainers. But you see, actors and musicians and performers are a very versatile bunch. They're very good at getting other jobs because unemployment is part of being an actor. But this year was particularly terrible because those other jobs didn't exist. They couldn't go and work in, you know, in restaurants or other shops and all of that. So for most actor friends of mine and musicians, this has been a terrible year.
While there have been clearly a lot of COVID-related panto closures this year, there is a glimmer of hope. Some productions are still happening, like this one, Cinderella at Theatre Royal Windsor.
I better go and start pampering myself and getting ready for the royal ball. Laters, losers.
The theatre and our director have just done the most amazing job. I can't imagine the hours that have put in so that we're all safe, the audience is safe, and staging it, because as you do your lines, wherever someone moves to, you've got to keep that distance. So if there's other lines that you move around to and out the corner of your eye, you just have to see that you're in line.
Tell me about how bad the impact is on a theatre if it has had to cancel pantomime this year.
Economically, it's incredibly important to theatres. So those that can't do anything this Christmas, unless they've been able to replace that income in some way, they are finding that incredibly difficult. But the other thing is pantomime is sort of the lifeblood of audience development for theatres as well. It's the time of year when children experience theatre often for the very first time in their lives. It was the case with me at the Wimbledon Theatre many, many years ago in Cilla Black in Aladdin, and I can remember it, you know. But pantomime is incredibly important for the theatre world on multiple levels, and I think theatres are going to miss it economically, they're going to miss it in terms of development, they're going to miss it in terms of outreach into their community.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Here at the Theatre Royal in Windsor, the running costs of staging Cinderella are £50,000 a week. They say that with reduced capacity because of COVID restrictions, they pretty well need to sell out to make it all financially viable.
Maybe this being a prince isn't all it's cracked up to be.
In terms of the kind of compromises you've had to make, I mean, what are they, and where are they obvious?
Well, the big obvious one is social distancing in the auditorium. So we are limited to 50%, so it's every other row of seats. We've had to make changes to our ventilation system as well. We're spraying the auditorium with antiviral disinfectant before every performance. And then on the staging of the show, we've had to work quite carefully to make sure we're working in fixed teams, we're managing social distancing backstage as well. And even things like audience participation. We don't want shouting and cheering and singing along because it can lead to aerosol transmission. So we're having to tweak the way we do things to still keep the magic of pantomime, but to try and make sure we're doing it in a COVID-secure way.
It's clear to see that because of COVID, many regional theatre pantos have had a severe knockback this year. But in 2021, you can tell it's such a big part of British tradition, it'll be back even stronger. Well, let's hop over the Atlantic now and head, like 6 million others every year, to the Grand Canyon.
Until recently, no Navajo woman had ever been given a license to run tours at the site.
Well, we've been over there to meet the guide who's changing all that.
My name is Nikki Cooley, and I'm from the Towering House clan, born for the Reed People clan. My maternal grandparents are of the Water That Flows Together clan. My paternal grandparents are of the Many Goats clan, and I come from Shanto and Blue Gap, Arizona. And this is how I always introduce myself to anyone as a Navajo woman. When commercial river guiding started in the Grand Canyon, it was primarily dominated by men, and women were only allowed to be helpers or the cooks or spouses of the male river guides. And so when I received this invitation from my friend, it was an invitation I took up very quickly. I grew up on the Navajo reservation with my paternal grandparents. As my parents were out working, I grew up in Shanto, Arizona and Blue Gap, Arizona, where I had no running water or electricity. But I also grew up herding sheep. I grew up raising corn and squash and other crops with my grandparents. I rode horses and really living off the land. I was very fortunate to grow up with my elders who taught me to respect and care for the earth. When I was a river guide, I would get a lot of people saying tribes are extinct. I didn't know that tribes still existed. And when in fact we're alive, we're prospering, we just want to be acknowledged. Mather Point Overlook provides that opportunity. It teaches them and it shows them that the tribes are still here and living and they are not extinct, and that this place is a place of spiritual and cultural significance to the tribes. My heritage, my culture is very important to me because the environment, Mother Earth and Father Sky are very much intertwined with my daily life. My clans are all related to the earth. My life's work in working with tribes on climate change is very much intertwined with the waters, the sky, and the animals. For Native and Indigenous people, we have a long and rooted history with the environment and the sky, the waters, in the sense that we still honor those relationships each day.
Stay with us, because still to come on the Travel Show.
The Roman Empire's sunken party town. And I wonder if your idea of a fun run involves sand and dunes. Well, it does in Dubai.
It's a great sense of achievement when you get up to the top and you run down the other side.
So don't go away.
The next in our series now, exploring the future of our past. Amanda Ruggeri's been looking at some of the brand new tech, letting scientists uncover and restore some stunning archaeological treats. This week, it's Italy and a sunken treasure not far from the city of Naples.
Here in Italy, in the Gulf of Naples, the ancient Roman city of Baiae has been explored by travelers and archaeologists for years. What many people come here for actually lies underwater, and this incredibly preserved site cannot survive forever. So I've come to see firsthand how a centuries-old problem is finding a 21st century solution.
Baiae was a luxury resort with incredible architectures connected with the most eminent men of the late Republican and early imperial times. The ancient authors wrote a lot about Baiae. They described Baiae as a little Rome, as a place for the holiday, a place crowded with all the aristocracy, but also with the young people, with the people walking on the beach, looking to the sea, people drinking wine.
How much did the water level rise?
It depends on the part of Baia, but normally is between 4 and 6 meters.
Wow.
That's why you can see underwater not only the floors, but also the walls. There are no other sites in the world with this concentration of mosaics from the Roman time underwater.
The Roman partygoers were drawn to the city's hot springs, but it was this same underground volcanic activity which eventually sank the city's ground level, leaving its ruins underwater. Even today, the Roman architecture remains under threat from volcanic activity, but being underwater brings other challenges to the artifacts too, especially those that aren't protected by layers of sand.
If they are on the seabed, open and so not covered by the sand, they are attacked by marine organisms, and we call bioerosion. For example, this is the reason why some statues that are recovered from the sea are completely destroyed or partially destroyed by the bioerosion.
I was invited to join the team testing new technologies to help better monitor the erosion, but also to help the public engage with this site in new ways.
So what are the technologies you're testing here this week?
This week we are testing underwater drones, underwater wireless sensor networks that are allowed to gather in real time data on the conservation status of the site, and also images that we can transmit in real time from the underwater environment.
So finally, it was time for me to go down and see it for myself. Under the water, a whole world opens up. The sculptures here are replicas. The real ones are safe above ground in the nearby archaeological museum. But the other artifacts, from the walls to mosaics, are original. It's extraordinary to see it all in person, and to learn how these innovations could dramatically improve the way the site is preserved by archaeologists and experienced by travelers. Using a new way of communicating underwater, information and pictures about any problems in the site, like erosion or even looting, can be communicated much more quickly. And the 3D imagery gives tourists a whole new way to experience the site, letting them imagine what it would have actually looked like.
We have developed a way to represent how this underwater cultural heritage site was in the past, using virtual reality, so that you can actually have an enhanced experience visiting the site. And you can also chat in a WhatsApp-like manner with the rest of the divers and with your beloved ones on the other side of the planet, and exchange images or exchange your feelings even when you are diving. We are supporting archaeologists, and they will be able to find more faster. And at the same time, I think they will be safer in the way they actually excavate a site. And hopefully also common people will be able to enjoy through, the 3D reconstruction what the archaeologists excavate for us. This is going to change actually whatever we are able to do in terms of exploring and understanding this environment.
Amanda there in the sunken city of Baia.
Now then, there aren't many warmer places at this time of year than the deserts around Dubai. That's where some locals, after months of restrictions and weight gain, are taking on the dunes in a bid to shake off what's been a pretty tough year. We've been there to meet some of them.
Do you know your table number? 4. You're this side. Thank you very much.
I'm Julie Johnston. I'm recently new to ultramarathon running. I've been doing desert running for around a year, and I'm here today for the first desert run race of 2020. My typical race around the UAE has usually been in the mountains or on the road. So this is going to be very interesting today, running 7 dunes, I believe. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I've been running for 7 years now, and the reason I started running was because it was a great way to stay fit. For the first 2 years, I absolutely hated it. It was hard, it hurt, and it was boring. But it was also rewarding. I started to lose weight and actually began to enjoy it. Running on soft sand, though, is a whole different experience. Gravity feels stronger, the sand seems to want to drag you down, and you get tired a lot quicker. 5K here feels more like 10K on tarmac, and once you mix in the heat out here in the desert, it feels pretty brutal.
Getting there.
I've always been a competitive person, but this is something totally new to me. In terms of technique, the trick is to think light and keep moving. Slow down and you get weighed down. And that's when it starts to get really hard.
I'm about just touching 3 kilometres, I think it is. 100 metres from 3 kilometres. And it's tough. It's getting tougher now because we're getting into bigger dunes. I haven't been counting, so I just keep thinking relentless forward motion, just one step after the other.
Lockdowns and restrictions have been hard on everyone around the world, but to be out here in the desert in the early morning, running and doing what I love again just feels amazing. In a strange way, maybe because we couldn't get out here and do things like this during lockdown, it's made us appreciate what we've got on our doorstep here in Dubai more. "50 minutes to do 5K over sand isn't bad. I'm really pleased with that, even if I could cover that distance in half that time on tarmac." For me, it was never about winning. I just wanted to get out here, maybe to show that despite COVID and the current restrictions, we can still take part in sport and do the things that we love. Maybe a little differently, but we can still do them.
Up, trophy up.
Congratulations.
It was just a beautiful, beautiful run. Seeing so many people out there, and you could see that there are many out there for the very first time, taking their first experience in the desert. It puts a smile on my face, and I'm sure they will be back for more. The hardest part actually was the very last dune. It was a real tough one, but it's a great sense of achievement when you get up to the top and you run down the other side.
The dune runners of Dubai there. Right, well that's it for this week. Coming up next time...
Santa in lockdown, and how he and the rest of Lapland are missing all the girls and boys who normally pay a Christmassy visit at this time of year.
And don't forget, until then, you can catch up with loads more of our adventures on social media. We're in all the usual places. For now though, from me, Raj and Datar, and everyone else standing at a safe social distance from me here in Windsor, it's goodbye.